Hi, I'm Kieran and welcome to Lesson 1 of Making Sense of Information Security. Right, let's get straight down to work. In this lesson we're going to look at what we mean by information security, your role as the person with responsibility for information security, and the idea of risk and responsibility. The first question is, what do we mean by information security? We're all familiar with ideas around the security of our homes or office premises. In that context, we might talk about locks, safes, key codes, and so on, and we know what we're dealing with. But information security is a bit slippier. It's a bit harder to get a grip on some of the concepts. What exactly are we talking about then when we talk about information security? Let me introduce you to the three key concepts of information security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. All of our businesses store and process information. For many of us, that may be all that we do. When we are working on information security, we want to ensure the confidentiality of that information. We want to make sure that only the people who are entitled to see or use the information get to see or use it, and that no unauthorized people have access to it. And we are concerned about the integrity of our information, its accuracy or its correctness. Integrity is a big subject, but for now, let's just consider, for example, that we want to make sure that the email we just received actually came from the person who appears to have sent it. Finally, we're concerned about availability. Information is the lifeblood of our business, and we must make sure it's available when we need it. We want to protect ourselves, for example, against a ransomware attack which deprives us of access to our information, at least until we pay the ransom. So, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, or for short, CIA. I think that's a memorable abbreviation, but it also emphasises the seriousness and importance of the information security role. In other words, the seriousness and importance of your role. It's worth taking a moment here to think about your role and position in the company. First of all, though, congratulations on deciding to take this course. I'm aiming to take your understanding of information security beyond compliance and box ticking, and to help you build solid expertise. But how did you find yourself with this big responsibility? I often find the responsibility sits with the office manager, sometimes with the receptionist, but often with someone outside the standard business management hierarchy. Sometimes the responsibility is assigned without that much thought as to what is involved. Maybe it's just about compliance. But if you're going to do your CIA job well, you're going to need a bit of heavyweight senior authority behind you. And you're going to need the support and assistance of your colleagues. This is not a job you can do on your own. If you're going to improve the security of your business, your colleagues will have to cooperate with you on that. Whether that's just in terms of education and training, or maybe helping you to prepare policies and so on. Above all, though, they will have to know that you and your company management take your responsibilities seriously. Now, by signing up for this course, you've already shown that you take information security seriously. And now, as we move on to look at risks and responsibilities, consider how you can use what you're learning to get the backing you need from the top and all-around support from your colleagues. Okay, it's time to dig a little deeper into what this information security or CIA work is all about. So we know what we want to protect, our information, but what do we want to protect against? What risks and threats are we facing? So meaningful security always starts with a risk assessment. If we don't know the risks, it's hard to avoid or reduce them. So the most obvious threat that we face is from fraud. Information systems have become an easy way to get into companies, and this easy route is used every day by fraudsters against every kind of company and organisation. For small businesses, fraud can be a disaster. It can put them out of business, for example, by crippling cash flow. Protection against fraud for businesses then can really be a matter of life or death. Next, we face a legal and regulatory risk. You'll be aware, it may be why you've been given this responsibility, that there's more and more regulation about how we handle information. There are general rules, and there may be specific rules for your industry. And failure to comply can result in fines, or in a worst case, withdrawal of your right to do business at all. We also need to consider the area of employee behaviour. If employees are not managed from a security perspective, they can, even with the best of intentions, cause you all sorts of problems. I worked recently with an architectural firm that was facing a £20,000 fine, which related to unlicensed software used on their system by an ex-employee. There's a lot more around the whole employee area. Do you know, for example, who is legally responsible if an employee downloads material that another employee finds objectionable? I'm not talking about illegal material, just something that another employee might object to. So probably the least likely threat that you face is the stereotypical hacker. The young man in a hoodie in a darkened room in front of a screen of cascading characters, worming his way into your system. These guys do exist, even outside of Hollywood, but overall they're not after you. As we're going to see in a later lesson, there are different people targeting small businesses. Okay, another way of looking at this is to think in terms of responsibilities. So it's usually easy enough to answer the question, who is responsible for security in your business? In this case, it looks like the answer is you. But a more interesting question to ask is, who are we responsible to? Now, the bottom line is that the directors or partners are responsible in law for the security of the information that the business holds or processes. And this is the same sort of responsibility they have to Companies House or to HMRC. So it's not unusual, especially for small businesses in their early years, or sometimes early months if that's all they get, to fail to take their responsibilities seriously to HMRC or to Companies House. But they learn very, very quickly that there's no avoiding these responsibilities. The same is starting to become true of information security responsibilities. Enforcement action by the Information Commissioner's Office, which they list on their website, is waking up companies to their responsibilities. Something else to consider, companies are also responsible to themselves, to their employees, their customers, their suppliers, and other stakeholders. As I mentioned, fraud can easily put a small company out of business, and just as it's irresponsible to leave ourselves open to fraud, it's equally irresponsible for companies to leave themselves open to fraud. In fact, I would say it's not just irresponsible, it's unfair and even immoral to risk their employees' livelihoods, as well as the livelihoods of anyone else who has a stake in the success or even the survival of the company. And this is all before we think about the responsibility to avoid the embarrassment or ridicule that can result from information leaks. We've all seen the dangers posed by email reply all or BCC and the like. One I came across recently, I was working with a law firm who hadn't successfully removed all traces of the track changes function in Word. And by doing that, they fully exposed the clauses that they themselves considered to be the weakest and most questionable, because they had been discussing the weaknesses and questionability of the clauses amongst themselves. And so they showed up these weaknesses in the contract that they then asked somebody to sign. So think about it. We all have our secrets, don't we? And so do companies. All that stuff that gets committed to paper, or I should say committed to the computer system or to email, it does need to be protected. And while IT companies get excited about us being able to access anything, anytime, from anywhere, using any device, somebody needs to be thinking about the security implications of all this. And in this case, that somebody is you. Okay, we've got a bit of a sense now of some of the risks and responsibilities, and an idea of what's involved in information security or CIA work. It's time now for you to get started, time to step away from your desk and start to explore your business security with your colleagues. So using the worksheet, you're going to do a basic risk assessment and a baseline analysis of attitudes to security in your company. That sounds more complicated than it is. The worksheet will step you through that. I just want to warn you that you might find some skepticism out there, some unwillingness to take this seriously, but you shouldn't worry about that. I want you to remember that your company is valuable. It has valuable information and valuable assets, and they need to be protected. So, thank you for joining me for this lesson, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Good luck.